pit.
Hello everybody, welcome back. Let's have a look at Bitcoin. We're also going to have a look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin to give us an overview of the general strength of the biggest altcoin and what that wants to do versus its Bitcoin brother. But also think about the overall vibe of what's going on with Bitcoin and why it's doing this. So the last few videos I've made since the whole Ukrainian invasion and then the sanctions that have followed suggest, in my opinion, that largely Bitcoin is moving up on a fundamental basis rather than a technical one. Now, there has been signals on this which have led to the latter part of this pump, which is good. So technicals are playing a role, and if we look at this 4 hourly as well, we're getting an incoming golden cross, and everything's looking pretty tasty as well for continuation for Bitcoin on a technical basis, outside of what we've discussed previously about the fundamental basis. And on the live stream last night, I spoke about it, and it's not so much about, from what I see a lot of people talking about oligarchs trying to stash their money into crypto and all these other things, which may be true. There's probably some that are doing some of that. There might be a few oligarchs on Coinbase pressing buy right now, but that is probably not what we're seeing. In my opinion, what we're seeing here is I suppose I hate saying it, but the hedge against inflation, which is essentially what it is. So we've all seen what's happened to the ruble, so we'll just have a quick look at that. Unfortunately, looking like CNS chart or a Doji coin or something like that. Or basically, it's looking awful, right? This is in relation to sanctions and obviously the economic repercussions of what's going on over in Eastern Europe right now, and this does not look like it wants to get any better. There's no reason for it to get better. It's just bleeding out, right? So this is what obviously is known as inflation. So over the space of a week and then effectively over a period of a few days, inflation kicked in massively to do with sanctions, right? So sanctions obviously driven by Western nations and some others as well. And anyone who is taking part in this is going to feel a little bit of inflation themselves, right? That's the nature of it. We are supposed to be in a world economy. We're all trading partners, or used to be. And so by sanctioning other countries, we essentially sanction ourselves. Now, we're talking about how Russia's economy is obviously not that big. It's also not very small either. Major exporter of energy, but their global economy, their economy on a global scale is much the size of something like Spain, which is obviously big, but it's not, superpower status, but it's not small, but it's not enormous. So Russia clearly gets hurt, and their inflation is going to be way harder, way faster than anyone else that takes part of it. And the feelings across the board for all other currencies that have taken part in the sanctions, so the euro, the pound, the dollar, the yen, they're all gonna feel the inflation pressure, but to a much lesser extent, but almost let's just face it, a guaranteed reaction. So this is the reaction on the ruble, and we can see the reaction versus other currencies versus their dollar pairing, which are all dropping down. So this is the euro, obviously going down, will likely go down. Euro is probably the one that's going to be affected the most out of all the Western countries because of the trade relations that they've got with Russia, or had with Russia. Japanese yen to a lesser extent, but it's still not a very nice looking chart on a daily. So again, inflation is continuing for Japan. We don't have why didn't I get the pound up? Maybe I'm too scared to look. And we will see the same effects taking place with the pound over here. So the pound obviously going down as well. So everyone's going to be feeling the effect against this. And then when we look over here, we see the DXY going up. So the DXY isn't necessarily to do with dollar strength. It's just the currency that's least affected. But inflation, as we all know, is 7% and maybe even higher now. Probably is higher given what's going on in the world. Yet the dollar index, as in the DXY, goes up, which normally, like I say, relates to, well, not I say normally, but it's not uncommon to see this have a negative reaction on Bitcoin. But unfortunately, this isn't the case. Bitcoin rises like the phoenix from the ashes amongst all of this, basically suggesting that this is more of a move against incoming inflation across all currencies, and less to do with oligarchs on Coinbase, So with that said, this is what I said a few videos ago, is this is Bitcoin's moment of truth? Is it the ultimate hedge? Is it going to live up to everything the maximalists have been touting all these years? And at the moment, the signs are that yes, it probably is. And this is going to be accompanied shortly by strong technicals on this chart, suggesting a continuation of an uptrend. So in the short term, we're in this area of resistance, as low as 44,000 and as high as 45,800. This corresponds to this small period of time that we spent around here, mostly. Okay, so this kind of zone, mostly representing, all of them representing tops. Breaking out from being in here is still good, and breaking out from here is even better. The main thing would be to stay above this 200 exponential, which is going to snake above and make that golden cross form around 41,000. So this is really a big deal for Bitcoin. This is the line in the sand. The $41,000 zone has to hold for this to continue with its technical chart structure on a 4-hourly time frame. So in the short term, it's looking quite good. Are we looking for a major push up at this moment in time? I think it's unlikely to imagine a much higher level than the top of this at this 45,800 for the moment. We can have wicks above there, but closures above here at this particular moment I would see as quite unlikely. What I would be looking for really would be probably a move up to here, maybe over the next few days, then a pullback, a consolidation, maybe even one as vicious as 41,000. But the longer this takes to pull back or consolidate, the better, because these moving averages will cross above this support, and when that happens, it becomes way more of a strong level of support. We saw that over here. So we broke out from the 41,000, retested it, golden crossed, more or less the same kind of setup that's taken place. So it's mimicking its previous behavior almost exactly. Came up to the top of these regions, rejected from the top, came down to retest the golden cross to see how bullish it really was, had a support on there, made a lower high, and broke down from there, accompanied with the death cross and all these other things. This time we're going to do we're doing exactly the same thing, almost at exactly the same levels. It's like going back in time effectively a couple of weeks is what's exactly is happening here. There's really no difference to the chart formation and the setup. The only thing that's different is the fundamentals that go behind effectively the nature of this move. So on a fundamental basis and a technical basis, things are looking pretty strong for Bitcoin. You can't really transfer that into altcoins, unfortunately, because they don't have the same fundamentals, the same promise. I wouldn't call it a use case, but there is a use case for Bitcoin. But it's more of a promise, I suppose, as a hedge against inflation, a store of value. The other altcoins don't really have that. They come with other promises, like, I don't know, CNS Pizza Day or whatever it is. So they're less useful in a situation like we have right now, and Bitcoin is the one that's going to be driving the market, and altcoins will generally follow in a much weaker way. Some will outperform, obviously, we know that. We looked at on the live stream, we saw Luna going straight to the moon. There was a few others, not many though. Most altcoins actually looked like they were going to drag their feet, and if you look at their Bitcoin pairs, they look worse. So this is Ethereum for its Bitcoin pair, and what we see is we're in an enormous descending triangle. So while being in a triangle, the best thing is to hold off and wait till we either break out, and then we can consider that the consolidation is over. For the moment, being in one of these, you can be brave and buy the support at the bottom and hope for the best. You could even try and buy the breakout rather than the breakout and retest. But what we're really looking at here is a continued consolidation. Although there was a bottom form, a low form over here, we effectively made lower highs each time, so this is it is a downtrend. This is a strong level of support, and it comes in at 0.056 sats. But if that breaks, there is this level here, which is an uptrend of support, effectively creating an even bigger ascending triangle. Now, the reason I've got this is never been tested as support yet, but it used to be our peaks over here prior to the big breakout, which, again, for the record, we did make that call on this chart. We've been watching this for a very long time. We did make that call, and what a lovely call it was. So now I still feel that this trend line here is going to be relatively important to see. If we break down from here, we might catch a low here, and this could mark the low for this particular chart. But generally, as we see, Bitcoin is continuing to outperform Ethereum, and while being in a descending triangle, even though the descending triangle is in one giant ascending triangle, it's a consolidation still, and until proven otherwise, it's a consolidation. We are looking like we're going to get a death cross. Probably if we continue below the 200 exponential, we'll get one of those over a period of a week or so. Let's take it to the 4-hourly, and the 4-hourly again, it doesn't look particularly strong at all. We had our death cross over here, and since then we've been below all major moving averages and still more or less below them all. And the reason we're talking about Ethereum to Bitcoin here is that it's not that Ethereum or anything is, I'm not saying it's bad or it's awful. I'm just saying that with the effect it'll have on the Bitcoin dominance chart, which is something that we like to look at, is going to be required for us to make a transition from a Bitcoin position into an altcoin position to call for any kind of prolonged altcoin gains, right? And for me, that's going to be the top of this trend line to begin with. This is the 47.5% on the Bitcoin dominance chart. Now, this is an uptrend in the making, I believe, and we will likely push up towards 50 and probably 52 to start, as a major area where a really good alt season could begin. And when I'm talking about major alt season, I'm not talking so much about, one coin does we could look at BITRUE, and BITRUE does something like 600% in a couple of weeks. So that's not an alt season. That's a small cap coin that's moving massively because of its low liquidity at the time, thin order books, buyers come in, they push up I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is time. I'm talking about how long something goes on. A season, in terms of what a real season is 3 months, isn't it? We have 4 seasons over a 12-month period. Divide that by 4, get 3 months. That's a season. So it's a period of time rather than looking at some things and go, wow, that did BITRUE did 600. I'm not saying go buy BITRUE. I'm just saying that I'm talking about a prolonged period where altcoins gain against Bitcoin, and that is likely to be determined on these levels here. So I would take the risk, to be honest with you, at this level with some of my Bitcoin to give it the opportunity to try. If that fails, then I believe that 52% dominant would be a really good opportunity. If that fails, and again, I'm all for these failing because it means that the longer, the higher this goes, the bigger the season inevitably will be. And we'll be moving up to 58. I find it relatively unlikely that we will break beyond 58 in what would be like a bull market or a bull run. I think it's more likely that we would see that a full retrace of this in a bear market, a prolonged bear market. So for the moment, this is like a sort of a no-go zone for any prolonged spot transition from Bitcoin into altcoins for me, especially with the Ethereum chart looking like this, which is going to determine largely which direction this Bitcoin dominance chart is going to go. So I welcome a higher Bitcoin dominance because that in turn will lead to a much better entry point for altcoins, especially the smaller cap ones, which will be the ones that rally really hard and really fast, and there'll be less stress. From a significant resistance level on a Bitcoin dominance chart, it's a less stressful time to trade. You don't have to. It's like what we've been doing over these last few weeks. We noticed that there's going to be some kind of a chance that altcoins will rally, and we take the opportunity, and then we have to say, okay, we can't be greedy. Let's take the 10, 20, 30% that we've made and just bank it. It's not likely to continue, whereas an alt season obviously has continuation. You can go to bed and relax and you can wake up the next morning and be pleasantly surprised, and that situation will continue hopefully for several weeks, maybe even longer, depending on how high the Bitcoin dominance chart goes and if we get a rejection from those levels. But for the moment, Bitcoin is the one that's moving, and anything that moves is basically moving in the shadows of Bitcoin and is likely to have the Satoshis drained out of them on a longer period of time. However, these things do reverse. We've been through all these sort of things before with altcoins, like the major move, and I always talk about this on the stream, but the major big move from Bitcoin dominance in recent history was this in the end of 2020. So we had a 3-month period where Bitcoin rallied from about 10,000 to about 30,000, 40,000. It did a 300% gain basically in a 3-month period. Unfortunately, all these altcoins were left way behind. Bitcoin dominance rallied all the way up to the major top area of resistance, giving us the best alt season we could have ever asked for. That went on for a really long period of time. It was heaven. It was amazing. It was the best. But during this time, while Bitcoin was rallying, unfortunately, everything was just either static or dragging its feet, or even some of them were losing their actual dollar value, which is, you know, it's not unheard of, but I'd never seen it to this extent in a Bitcoin move which was so aggressive. So we could be looking at that sort of thing taking place. So small cap altcoins, you know, not going to do particularly well, unless of course something happens with them. And again, there's always going to be anomalies and things that happen. But one thing I always say on these streams is that, yeah, that was painful for those who were in something like Harmony 1 that basically lost money. So you could have been in a Bitcoin position and it rallied 300%, or you could be in a Harmony 1 position which actually went down about 17% in a 3-month period. Frustrating. Very, very, very frustrating for those who would have been doing that kind of thing, watching, you know, Bitcoin mooning while they actually lose value, you know, and they actually lose their value against dollars. But it all worked out in the end. And again, I'm just using Harmony 1 as an example. It all worked out in the end. Harmony 1 ended up rallying and eclipsing Bitcoin in the end. So this isn't going to be the case for everything, but this was certainly the case for Harmony 1. And the reason I talk about it is that it's not the end of the world. You might get stuck in a position. Again, this is what we're talking about. December 2000 and I'm on a 4-hourly chart here. Let's get out of that. So it was December. It was September to December. This is the period where basically sats were being drained out of Harmony 1. This is horrendous. I should have got into Bitcoin. I should have got into Bitcoin. Oh my God, I should have got into Bitcoin. I should have gone into Bitcoin. And then finally, oh, thank God, it all paid off in the end. So this, doesn't have to be. This isn't going to be how it's going to be for every altcoin. So don't be lulled into a false sense of security. But it can often happen in a very significant alt season. So I hold quite a lot of alts. I'm not going to lie to you. I always talk about the alts that I've got and my plans for them, and I'm not in any hurry to sell any of them. So yeah, even though I'm explaining to myself their own potential demise in the short and mid-term, it doesn't particularly bother me. There is staking that's available which can help with all of that. And again, the ones that I hold, the things that I hold, I do expect to eclipse Bitcoin when all is said and done. But for the moment, this is the projected outcome that looks most likely in the short term, and no kind of alt season is likely to take place until at least we reach a level of significant horizontal resistance, which the first one is 47%, 47.5%. Right, in that case, I'm going to leave it with you. That was a long video. If you made it to the end, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll just assume that you didn't. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and take it easy.